Hello YouTube, this is Savior20061, and I haven't posted anything for a while. I haven't posted anything for a little over a month, so I'm going to go ahead and make up for that by reviewing 4 books at once. I'm sure it's not going to be a complete disaster. Let's do this, okay? First book, As I Lay Dying by William Faulkner. This book is confusing. It keeps jumping between different characters. It's about an entire family trying to travel throughout Mississippi to the town of Jefferson, where they can bury the mother of the family. And it's really confusing, and it's also kind of interesting. But the problem with this book is that to really understand it, you almost have to go online and actually look at a character analysis to see what's kind of going on with all these characters, because it keeps jumping. And even though it gives you different perspectives by constantly jumping from one character to the other every couple of pages, it also makes it so that you really lose clarity in terms of what's going on, what's really inside these characters' heads. And can I recommend this book? I actually can, but it could, because it's like a classic, you know. So it's one of those books that everyone should read once, even if they have no idea what the hell is going to go on. And because it is a good book with a good point, you just have to really, because you have to read it, and then you have to look at the character analysis online, and then you have to read it again, and then it makes sense. Okay. The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway. This one is about some trip that some guys take to Spain, and there's bullfighters, and it's almost like the Great Gatsby in that these characters, they are trying to recover after World War I. Like the narrator, I can't remember his name because I don't care. He was actually rendered impotent by World War I. And he's in love with this woman. Her name is Brett Ashley, but Brett Ashley is kind of a hoe, so she's sleeping with all these other guys, and there's all this drama. And I'd probably say that I like this better than Great Gatsby, just because Ernest Hemingway is a master of the beige prose, where it's simple words, short sentences, so that you can really just read right through it. Some people might not appreciate it as much as F. Scott Fitzgerald's prose when it comes to The Great Gatsby. And it's like, okay, but the most interesting part about this book is probably that the way that the characters try to cope with all their problems. They really drink a lot. They drink like every day, which is kind of, I can't even imagine doing that, really. So it's just an interesting, because it mirrors like The Great Gatsby in that way, in that the horrors of World War I is making it so these characters are actually drinking all the time, they're partying all the time, but they're obviously still miserable. There's no sense of happiness from any of these characters. So the book really reflects Ernest Hemingway's sense of nihilism that was developing post World War I. Okay, Quicksand. I don't know if I did this one already. Quicksand is the story of this biracial woman who's really kind of struggling to find her identity in the 1920s. And the interesting part about this book is that it's not so much political, so much as very psychological. You're really getting into the head of this woman. Her name is Helga Crane, and you go through all of her life decisions. It does not end on a very good note, let me just tell you that. And the interesting part about this book is that it really contrasts with other African American novels, like, for instance, Their Eyes Were Watching God, which I'm about to also review, and The Marrow of Tradition. Those books were a little bit more political, like a little bit more theme based in nature, whereas Quicksand, the book that I'm talking about, because there's two books, there's Quicksand and Passing. Quicksand is really about getting into the head of this one biracial female and her attempts to really cope with a society being biracial. It's like, where do you fit in? And she doesn't really understand where she fits in until it's too late. Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Hurston. And it is the story of this. It's a coming of age novel, a life novel, which are one of my favorites, about this woman who starts off as a young lady at 16, dealing with the issues of marriage. It's almost like a deconstruction of marriage, of what is and what isn't a good marriage, and she first tries to tackle marriage from the traditional perspective, from the 19th century, and all the centuries that came before, from their perspective, where the marriage was not so much based on love, although maybe it was in some cases, but more often than not, it was based on economic security. And Their Eyes Were Watching God is very much a deconstruction of that, because on two different occasions, she goes. Actually, on one occasion, she goes into marriage for economic security. In another marriage, she goes for what seems to be shallow excitement and escapism. And it's not until the third marriage where she really just goes with the guy because she loves him for who he is. And it's a good story. One thing that I don't like about Their Eyes Were Watching God, as well as The Marrow of Tradition, and a lot of stories that actually use the use of I dialect and otherwise known as Black English vernacular, and or also known as Ebonics, is that it spells the word based on the pronunciation for the black characters, but just use but it uses the standard spelling for the white characters. And sometimes they will do this in spite of the fact that sometimes they'll do it completely arbitrarily. Whereas was, which is pronounced W-U-Z, but it's spelled W-A-Z, they will spell it W-U-Z for the black characters in incorrect spelling, but they will spell it W-A-Z for the white characters. That was the case in Marrow of Tradition. Charles Chestnut, whatever his name is, he was not good at Black English vernacular, and we don't see the same problems in Their Eyes Were Watching God, thankfully. Still doesn't end on the best note. That is kind of the recurrent theme with a lot of modern literature, which was what my classes were actually getting into. They were getting into early 20th century literature. They were getting into modernism, and one of the traits of modernism, unfortunately, is the idea that not everything is going to end on a very good note. And that is a very post-World War I idea. Although Marrow of Tradition was not written in the 20th century, but one of the ideas that was taking place at this point was that I don't know if any of you guys have seen the poster for A Scanner Darkly, but the common theme of it, the common motto of it that is across all of the posters, is the sentence, "Everything is not going to be okay." And that is what you are going to see in modern American literature, regardless of which author of which book you're going to read. And it is what it is. Can I recommend them? Yes.